I'm Sia. A fun fact about me is that I'm a triplet. And if you ever forget my name, it's Sia, like see you later. So that's always my catchphrase. I'm pursuing bioengineering at Harvard, but I also really like stem cells and regenerative biology. So I'll be doing like a double concentration, but we're still figuring that out. And on the side, I run a company called NeuroNuggets, and we're like a science communications and publications platform. So essentially, we write about science articles and we publish them, and we're actually starting chapters at different schools to help people with their college essays. So if you're ever interested, definitely reach out to that for that as well. Something more fun about me though is I really like running long distance and I like watching F1.
Perfect, perfect. Uh, before we actually dive into your college application story, I have to ask, when you got that Harvard acceptance letter, what was your first thought?
So actually, I was in Chipotle with my friends and we're all
Uh-huh.
recording, obviously, and they're all like, it's like, oh, she's not getting it. And I open it and I like shoot back and I start crying and I'm screaming. And the Chipotle people, they're like, what is happening? Did somebody give birth? But it's just me screaming.
Somebody give birth is crazy.
I'm like walking around and I'm just like, guys, I got into Harvard. The Chipotle people did not give me free Chipotle, so that is disappointing. But I think I was very relieved in a way because it like I feel like all my work paid off. Because I didn't apply to that many colleges, so Harvard was my last resort. It was either Harvard or my
Mm-hmm.
state school, and then Harvard clutched up and they're like, we want you, and I was like, all right.
Hey, I bet it was like one of the best days, huh?
Yes, I still have the video. I watch it every few weeks. I watch it. It's pretty emotional.
I guess like there's this myth, or I don't know, maybe it's a fact, I don't know. The Harvard only accepts superhuman teenagers. What would you say about that?
Oh, that's false. That is false. Every time, I'd say my least favorite compliment is every time I show somebody my college application, they're like, oh, it's definitely her essays. It's definitely not her extracurriculars, which that's like they're saying, like, oh, you didn't do enough work. So if you ever feel like superhumans are the only people who get admitted and like example that it's not true, I haven't done any like super fancy, crazy stuff. I just kind of stick to the things I have. The resources here are limited. Then also just like the norms and the stereotypes within my family are a little different. So I've just
Mm-hmm.
stuck to the resources I had, and made the most of it, honestly. I wouldn't say I've done anything that cool.
Okay. Good to hear for people who are just listening to it, you know. And maybe they
Yeah.
have a chance as well. All
Yes.
right. Let's talk a little bit more about your background. So, like, where are you from? What kind of school, high school did you go to? Public, private, stuff like that.
So I go to a public high school. Originally, I went to a middle school that was very much known for crime. It was not a good area. So then we moved, and I think that definitely played a big role in like Harvard because
Mm-hmm.
the high school in my area was not very good. The high school I went to recently, it's a football school. We went to state for football D1, so we're not very academics or STEM people. I definitely introduced my school to more like STEM in academics because before it was always like football and track and field and cross country. As for like my family background, so we're from India and I have a family of seven. I'm a triplet. I'm the only girl. I have two brothers. So that there's always been that pressure to like adhere to like the stereotype, like the village stereotypes, the village norms in India of like you don't get that high of an education or you don't have that you're not supposed to have lofty goals, right? You're not supposed to
Yeah,
like
I
you're not
get it.
supposed to
Yeah.
reach far. You're supposed to stay close to the family. So that was the background, but I broke those norms and I did not stick to them.
Perfect. Yeah. So, like, when did Harvard first enter your mind as a possibility? Was it like always a dream, or did it like sneak up on you?
Definitely snuck up on me. So I've
Uh-huh.
always been a STEM kid. Like since day one, I've loved science. That's all I talk about. And so that introduced me to MIT and Caltech. But I was waitlisted at Caltech, rejected MIT, sadly. But I did a summer program through MIT called My Semester. So MIT just kind of always, it was my dream school. Like I fell in love with MIT. I would dream about it. My friends and I would talk about it all the time. Like, oh, we'll take these classes there. And then for me, Harvard was just like, oh, like Harvard is close to MIT, so I might as well apply there as well. It was not at the top of my list, but that being said, it was not on my list either. Like it was on my list. It was just number 3 on my list. After actually exploring Harvard, I realized how much I like it. Before, I
Mm-hmm.
did think of Harvard in a very stereotypical way of, oh, it's lawyers and not politicians. But then once you look at their STEM program, like they have a whole major in concentration dedicated to just stem cell and regenerative biology. They still care about their STEM, even though they're known for politics and
Six, yeah.
economics. Their STEM is still incredible. Like they're doing amazing things every single day.
I mean, it's Harvard, you know? It's like the
Right.
best school.
Oh. But actually, So I know this is a little off topic, but I think over editing essays is definitely a big thing because my MIT essays, I spent 7 months on them, whereas my Harvard
Mhm.
essays, I spent about 2 weeks on them.
Do you think you're more authentic when you edit them less? You just like,
Yes,
okay, I wrote it
because
and then.
because I've done a few like prestigious programs and competitions and stuff. So all the
Mhm.
kids that you meet along the way, you kind of have a whole community with them. And I shared my essays with them, and there was just so much editing and feedback happening amongst these other super amazing kids. So I was like, he's smart and he's telling me to fix this. So my essay went through the hands of multiple people when it came to MIT and Caltech. Whereas Harvard, I was like, you know what? This is just more relaxed. Harvard, since it was number 3 on my list, I wasn't stressed when writing them, and I only had my
Mhm.
brother edit them. And I was a lot more authentic to myself because at the end of the day, it's like there's so many smart people applying to Harvard, and you don't want to just sound like another person. You want to sound like yourself. So I think that's what helped me with Harvard.
Totally understand. Like that's like this common sentiment with all of the Harvard kids I've interviewed so far. It's like just being authentic, you know. So I get there's something to that, you know, raw truth. All right. I guess let's talk about your stats. So what were your stats? I'm asking about GPA, test scores, and everything.
But I would definitely say my extracurriculars were stronger than my stats. So with just my test scores, I only took the ACT. I have a 34 on my
Mhm.
ACT. So that puts me at the bottom 25 percentile for Harvard. And even though it's a 34. So if you do have a 34, don't count yourself out. But a 34 does put you in the bottom 25 percentile. And so you want to make sure you still have a strong score. I never took the SAT, didn't take the PSAT. My school never offered it, so we just didn't know
Mhm.
about it. I was valedictorian for my school. We have
Okay.
weighted GPA, so my unweighted was 4.0, but then my weighted was like 4.6 something. I definitely like, especially for coursework, I'd say the number one thing I'm really proud of is like my course load was a lot higher than the average kids at my school, or even usually like what was expected. So my school usually didn't do dual enrollment, but I set up the dual enrollment connection between my school and a college nearby, University of
Mhm.
Cincinnati. So through there, I took a lot of dual enrollment classes and I was taking around 30 credit hours a semester. Lack of sleep, definitely
That's
lack of sleep.
crazy.
But my
Isn't that
course
like
load
double?
was very heavy.
I didn't
Yes, the
like
average is like 16,
16.
16 to 20, 16 to 20. But I was maxing out my credit. It's free. And like I was like, if dual enrollment is free, then I'm going to take it because college is expensive. So I took a lot of I think that always if you can take more APs, if you can always take the hardest classes possible, because that just shows like you're committed, you know? At the end of the day, it just comes down to like your drive. And schools like MIT and Harvard and Caltech, that coursework is hard. And everybody I've talked to, they're like, yeah, it's hard. You will cry. You will not sleep. So you want to show that with your coursework. I think the best part about my stats, it's not my score, but definitely my course load. It was all like APs and dual enrollment.
Okay, so a follow-up question would be, what was the hardest class you took that made you think this might
Organic
actually hurt my
chemistry,
Harvard chances?
like hurt my Harvard chances. Organic chemistry because I had an A minus my second semester. I don't think Harvard gets your second semester scores, or I think they do. I'm pretty sure they do. But I've had two A minuses my whole high school career. My first A minus was art, a required art class, freshman year, first semester. And then my second A minus was organic chemistry, senior year, second semester. So it was like my first score and my last score. But I definitely was scared. I don't know why I was scared though, especially after the physics AP exam. I was like, I don't want Harvard to see my physics AP exam score, but I got a 3 on that. So I still passed.
But
It
you got
wasn't
in
that.
Harvard as well. So
Yeah, yes.
all's well that ends well, you know?
Yeah.
Could you take us through a couple of your activities that you did for Harvard applications?
Sure. So my biggest activity, first I talked about family responsibility. That was my number one on my Common App. Family responsibility, like I have a family of 7, but like we have people coming in and out of India all the time, so it just fluctuates and like taking care of everybody's like food, driving them around, health care, you know. So that was my first activity. I'm not gonna elaborate more on that because it's just family responsibility. But my second one was Might Semester. I definitely think so. Might Semester, it's a program offered through MIT, and I definitely think that was like revolutionary. It genuinely changed my life. So it's a 6-month program. In the first 3 months, I spent time working with a few group of kids, 1 to 2 professors on a project of our own. I was in the human genetics class. So we worked on this project because I've been specifically interested in NASA's mission to Mars. And essentially, when you're on Mars, even when you have greenhouses built, when you're growing plants inside of these greenhouses, they're still exposed to higher UV radiation, extreme temperature fluctuations, and then like low water. So we were bioengineering a plant specifically called Arabidopsis, where we edit it to withstand a certain percentage of Martian climates. So what I was specifically working on was the UV radiation part. So I was looking into different extremophilic microorganisms, which are just like, they're microorganisms that can withstand UV radiation. And I just look at their genomes, their proteins, like what exactly is helping them be UV resistant, and then how we can implement that into the plant. So that was the first 3 months. And the next 3 months is more like college readiness. So they help you with your essays and just like a whole overall community where they like show you different opportunities. And that's where my next 2 projects or activities started from. The 2 things that I developed for MIT semester, the first one was NeuroNuggets. So during MIT semester, I also took a science writing course where we would interview experts, read up on different research papers, and then publish a science article on a specific scientific topic or a new development in the field. So that's what I did, and I really enjoyed that. So I started my own company called NeuroNuggets, where right now we have about 75 to 85 writers, and they get to pick their own topics, but we have like monthly rotations and everything. It's a whole different field. But we publish science articles every week, sometimes twice a week, sometimes once every 2 weeks. It just depends on the quality of the papers. And then we open different chapters at schools to help them with like their college applications. And it's all like affordable pricing and everything, just to like make sure the students who actually need it are getting the help. And then the second project that I started, it's more of an engineering project. So it's more for energy and sustainability. We built a hybrid vertical axis wind turbine. So essentially there's horizontal axis wind turbines, which are like this, and they spin, like they're huge, the
Yeah.
ones out in the plains, except those are very costly and they take up too much space and they're not as efficient. So there's a new advancement and it's called hybrid vertical axis wind turbine, and they spin like this and they're more compact. Except because it's a recent development, the current products in the market are not very efficient. So what we did is essentially we built our own product, and the idea was born during my semester, and my team is just my brothers and I. And essentially that's my whole research project right there. It's that. You can see the graphs actually.
Yeah.
The product we built it's all CFD simulation, all tested on open foam CFD simulations, where we like model like how it interacts with wind particles and like different wind types. It's like low wind speeds, high wind speeds, turbulent wind speeds. And our model is 35% more power efficient and 25% more cost efficient than the current models in the product market. So now we're just working on like scaling that into an actual business. We're gonna name it Vision Ventra and like build our first product, hopefully out of nylon, even though it's very expensive, and then just go from there, you know? But more school-based activities. I did cross country and DECA. Those were my top 2 for like school-based activities and leadership. Cross country's always been like a big thing in my life. I've always been a runner. And I was the captain for my team, so I'd always like lead workouts. And that's just what I talked about. Like leading workouts and like I guess running builds discipline. So I talked about that as well. And then DECA, I just talked about how like I really like the connection between science and business. So that's why I did DECA. And then like my partner and I, we went to nationals 2 times. So I just talked about that experience and like leading my chapter and how we like improved my business skills and like my speaking skills and marketing. So those are my most impactful activities.
Yeah, that's like crazy impact. I was just thinking about it. 85 writers. Is it like a business, or is it like people who want to write, they just write?
So the NeuroNuggets science publications platform, it's completely free. Anybody's welcome to join, but not anybody can get published. I think, because I used to be a pretty subpar writer back then. I just think writing is so important in every field, including college applications,
Yeah.
but it requires practice. So I want to provide that mentorship. So I'm the editor-in-chief, but I have a few editors with me as well. And we provide that editing process and that mentorship to help these kids improve their writing skills. And then we just work back and forth. And then as these writers grow, some of these articles actually become publish worthy. So we publish them. But then our in-school chapters, they are paid. So because those are college application workshops. So they are affordable. They're anywhere from like $18 to $23 per hour, depending on the area you're in. And right now, actually meeting at 8 p.m. for that. I'm opening a chapter in Canada. So we'll see how that works because right now we've only been in the US and like in my district. But somebody in Canada was interested. So we'll see how that goes.
Great work. That's amazing. Could you walk us through how long did it take for you to build all of these projects?
Yes, they took a while, but okay, breakdown. So NeuroNuggets, that started very early 2024, and I was the
Mm-hmm.
only writer, and it wasn't called NeuroNuggets. It was just like my name. It was on Medium, which is a publication site where so you don't have to pay for any website or domain. And I would just write, I'd interview experts, read these research papers for like hours on end, and then publish like twice a month. And then as like I started getting more readers and people were actually interested about it when I published it on LinkedIn, I was like, oh, like I should actually make this into something. So from beginning of 2024 to now, it's been over a year for NeuroNuggets. And then as for the hybrid vertex wind turbine, I 3D printed it. It's in a different room. So I can send you a picture if you're interested. Hold on.
Perfect.
That's the project. So that whole thing took around a year. The prototyping and the background testing, the background research and the prototyping definitely took the most amount of time. And we finished our first prototype around like March of this year. We started it last summer. We finished our first prototype and background research and everything March of this year. And then we competed in like the science fair and then like different like business
Mm-hmm.
competitions. And then as people in like the local area and businesses started to like know more about us and we started getting more funding, now we actually have enough money to like expedite the prototyping process. So we're on prototype 4 now. We just changed because I want to make it more consumer centric. Essentially,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't understand how the product works or if it's too hard to use, you won't use it. So we changed it to where now all the blades are adjustable. These right here, all the blades, you can take them off. So if anything ever breaks or you want to customize it for your area, you can just take it right off. It's a lot more customizable. Also, if you want to attach it to any sort of existing infrastructure, inside it like opens like this. And we used this mechanism that they use in shoes, specific shoes, where you can like tighten it and it's a
Mm-hmm.
custom fit. So it's just like that and it can like expand and close the inner radius so it can attach to any infrastructure. But that's our new prototype and it's been a while. It's taken more than a year. So anyone out there, if you are like doing any sort of project, it takes time. It will take more than a year and it looks good if it takes long because that's how you know it's quality work.
I guess when did you realize that you needed to, step up your extracurricular game for Harvard?
It's like sophomore year. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I should say this or not, but I might as well just say it since I go to Harvard now. But I wouldn't say I was a troublemaker, but I had 6 detentions my freshman and sophomore year combined. I've always been like a thrill seeker and an entrepreneur at heart. So I had a homework business going on, but it wasn't exactly so I actually did the people's homework for them and I charged them money. And then I was caught for that. And I had detention for that. But that's when I realized I was sitting in detention and you had to show up like before school early in the morning. So I'm just sitting there. And I'm like thinking to myself, I was like, wow, like this is not what a good kid does. I'm not supposed to be here in detention. So I think I needed those detentions because that's when I realized like I should not be here. I should not be doing this. No, I need to lock in. Um, and then also at that time, so my district never sends anyone to Ivy Leagues, let alone my school. My whole district sent 3 kids to an Ivy League, but my school, my sophomore year, a senior went to Yale. And then I knew him and I spoke to him and he was telling me about like everything. His name was Chad, actually. And I spoke to
Such
him
a Chad.
and he was like, yeah, I was like, you look like you have so much fun, like on the outside. And he was like, yeah, like I may seem like I'm enjoying life on the outside, but you have to like enjoy life and do the things you like while still being locked in. So that's when I realized I can't just go around having fun. And everything isn't okay just because you're excelling at what the school's standards are. Like my school's not an academic school. So I thought, oh, as long as I have all A's and I'm just taking classes, then it's fine. But it's not fine. And I realized that sophomore year in detention and when I spoke to Chad.
Amazing story. Before we wrap up the extracurricular section, what
Yeah.
advice would you have for freshmen and sophomores just, starting to craft their application and who are looking to get into Harvard?
So don't try to be like everybody else. Everybody's school is different, but whatever your school's norms are of success, you have to redefine what success means for you. So if everybody at your school is okay with taking all APs, you shouldn't only be at the all APs level. You need to show how you are different from the kids at your school. And for some people, it's harder to do than others. Like for me, my school wasn't an academic school, so it's easier for me to stand out. But if your school is more competitive, it's harder for you to stand out, but you have to make sure you stand out. And the way you stand out is by starting your own passion projects, whatever it may be, whatever level it is, whatever resource you have around you, and then really sticking to it. And then also being open to career changes. I thought I was going to be a criminal psychologist, and I was very wrong. And that's okay. But whatever your interests are, the way you develop them or the way you change them is by pursuing passion projects. So make sure you just don't waste time on Fortnite, okay? Like you can play Fortnite and you can also be doing things you enjoy, things that are enriching intellectually, because that's how you're gonna stand out. So that is my advice.
Yeah, I think the most development I've gotten in my life is through 4 to 6 months of a side quest. Just
Yes.
getting deep into some stuff, and you
Yes.
learn
Go
so
down
much
that
about
rabbit
yourself
hole.
as well.
Yes. Follow through with that idea. Like if you're like, man, I really want to start a finance club, follow through with it. Or if you're like, man, I'm interested in regenerative medicine, then go down that rabbit hole because I think it's
Yeah.
character development.
Man, I really want to start this podcast.
Just
Let's
start it.
do this.
That's great. That's great.
Okay, let's talk about essays. So, what was your main essay about for Harvard? First,
So you mean
let's
the
talk about
Common App?
Common App personal essay. Yeah.
So I wrote that about like gender norms, and so I'd say the biggest, not negative impact, but sort of like suppressive impact in my life has been like the stereotypical expectations that my family expects of me because they come from a very traditional village in India. It's like I've always been, I want a PhD. I care about academics, and then that's been looked down upon. You can't be too ambitious. And then that kind of impacted me on like my extracurriculars. I was like, oh, like, I shouldn't be too ambitious. I shouldn't try to go outside of what's expected from me. So that was what my Common App essay was about, of how you need to break free from like external validation from these expectations or these norms that aren't doing you any good. Derive that self-validation or that joy from like your own passions and knowing that being passionate is not something that's wrong. And the way you break generational cycles or like the way you break free from the environment you're in is by like not adhering to the norms around you. So that was what my essay was about.
Follow up with another question. How many essay topics did you go through before landing on?
I went through 6 Common App personal drafts. I started in the summer. My first essay was very bad. I sent it to one person to edit, and I could just tell from her comments, like, there was just no hope for that essay. I had to grow a lot in my writing skills because it's hard to talk about yourself or like your struggles or your passions from the frame of a Common App essay. So start
Yep.
early because I had to go through 6 drafts before I got my final one. And maybe that's just
And
me.
what made you think like this was the one?
I had my friend read it, and so actually I only had one person read it, and he was the one who got into Harvard. So I was like, you know what? He got into Harvard. He can tell me what to do. And he read that and he was like, I'll see you at Harvard then. And that was his only comment. And I was like, oh, okay, like maybe that's good. But on a more serious note, like I read that and I was like, wow, like this actually tells my story, you know? Like if I'm talking to a friend and they're like, hey, like tell me about your background, that is the stuff I would hit on, and that is what I talked about in my essay. So I just knew that essay was like true to me. I wasn't trying to be something I wasn't.
Okay. Let's shift gears real quick. Let's talk about supplemental essays. Which Harvard supplemental essay made you stare at a blank screen the longest?
So I have all my essays on one Google Doc, and it is actually over 400 pages long.
That's insane. You wrote all that.
I mean, it's like everything, like competitions and everything. It's just insane. Okay. Ooh,
It
this one.
takes 400 pages of Google Docs to get into
Yes, it
Harvard.
does. So it says, a time when you strongly disagreed with someone about an idea or issue. How did you communicate or engage with this person? What did you learn from this experience? 150 words max. So I didn't know how to approach that one because I was like, oh, like when have I disagreed with someone and how is it a significant disagreement to where I like showed intellectual reasoning? Because I think the one thing about me, I just like to think about things and I'm just such a debater. So I wanted to show a disagreement where like it showed that side of me of just like sitting down and like debating something without really trying to prove them wrong. And it took me a while. It was the last essay I finished, but I think it's my favorite one. I think that was, I think that is what got me into Harvard. In that if there was one thing that I had to decide and I could only submit one essay, I would submit that one. So I talked about, I have 800 tabs open also. So I talked about arguing with my dad. And my last sentence, what was my sentence? My favorite sentence, I talked about how, like, throughout the debates, I was never trying to prove him wrong or insult him, but rather to learn how his background shapes his views. So that's my favorite sentence because I think that sums up, like, how I usually debate with people who I have disagreements with. But that was my favorite essay.
Okay, let me follow up with another question. How do you, I guess, be authentic when you're trying to impress the admissions officers?
Well, it's a good thing that I have siblings because before my interview with my person, I asked my brothers, I was like, oh, if you have to brag about me, what would you tell them? And they were always like, oh, like Sia loves debating and Sia knows a lot about STEM. And then like Sia's also considerate. And that was like the first few things that they said. So I just made sure to hit on those with my admissions officer. But I never, whenever she asked me a question, I never led with that. I tried to answer her like actual question first. Oftentimes, what I've noticed people do wrong in interviews is they don't ever answer the question. They just try to say what they've been trying to say, just flex everything they're good at. Whereas I tried to actually answer her questions and then pivot in a relevant way to what I want to talk about. So stuff like NeuroNuggets and stuff like actual engineering projects, you can't really depict them very well in your application. So I knew I wanted to show her that more in depth. So I actually like brought pictures and like a mini prototype of the stuff I'd built to show her. I didn't show her in a condescending way. And then this is very specific, but also when you're like explaining the science, don't ever use jargon because that doesn't actually make you seem smarter. The best people who know their science the best often explain it in a way where a third grader can understand it. So if you are, very specific tip, if you are ever explaining a niche topic that you're interested in, explain it in a way where they would actually understand. I think that's a pretty big green flag.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, let's talk about the why Harvard essay. I guess how did you avoid sounding like every other person writing same why Harvard essay?
So for that one, I provided a lot more background. Let me pull it up actually. So, well, it asks more of like, there's two why Harvard essays. One of them is like, how do you hope to use your Harvard education in the future? So for that one, I was like very, very specific. So I talked about like heart disease and how, especially like minority groups, because of like epigenetics and like oppression, racism, colonialism, minority groups tend to suffer more from heart disease just because genetically they're more susceptible to it. So I talked about that and how I want to develop research skills at Harvard in like these labs to where I can consciously make choices that eliminates bias in any future research I do. But specifically, I talked about making affordable stem cell and gene therapy for genetic and degenerative diseases prevalent in third world countries.